In the maze of questions, chasing all the facts, we're cooking up some knowledge in our little lab of rats. Equations in our notebooks, coffee in our paws, jokes about statistics and peer review laws. It's the Lab Rat Show where science is better when we talk together.
Welcome to the Lab Rats Show, episode 5. My name is Dr. Anousheh McWhiskerson, and my guest today is Dr. Josh Stewart, Ph.D. in educational psychology from the University of Northern Colorado. He is the founder and principal researcher at Rocky Mountain Research and Strategy. He's also a former research scientist that supported the Institute of Education Sciences, working for firms such as Mathematica and Marzano Research. Please welcome Dr. Josh Stewart to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. McWhiskerson.
What is your favorite cheese?
I'd have to say Camembert. It has a very powerful flavor that I think really accentuates the texture, the sharpness of the flavor. It's an exact opposite of mild cheddar. It has a lot of great, powerful, pungent components. It's amazing.
I camembert it. Dr. Stewart's dissertation is entitled Teaching of Evolution in Public Schools, a Cross-Cultural Examination. What an interesting dissertation. What are the research questions?
So the research questions are: 1, do US versus German pre-service teachers differ in how they perceive evolution and its arguments, and whether or not it should be taught in science classrooms? 2, does religious participation predict those outcomes, stronger religious participation and religious beliefs being associated with perhaps less interest in teaching evolution in the classroom? Question 3, does high school or college biology class preparation increase the likelihood of conflict or interest in teaching evolution in public classes? And then finally, 4, how do pre-service teachers justify or anticipate responding to challenges teaching evolution in public school classrooms?
What's so good about your research?
There seems to be a stronger conflict between science and religion in the US, which does not occur in other countries. I wanted to kind of pin down why, but also what are the practical implications behind teaching science? What are the drawbacks? What are the fears that educators might have? Or what are maybe some misconceptions that they have around biological evolution and other topics?
So you selected Germany as the compare and contrast country for this study with the United States. What was the reason that Germany was selected?
We have this really dark history with Germany and the idea of eugenics and all of these touchy subjects that could make teaching evolution problematic in Germany these days. There's a space for teaching religious classes outside of science. And so I would say pulling out the science component, separating it from religion.
The fantastic findings.
We had about 130 participants from the US setting and 120 from the German setting. The religiosity of a particular pre-service teacher was associated with a higher degree of sympathy towards teaching things like creationism or alternatives to the theory of evolution. Even if somebody had taken more high school or college science courses, there were still misconceptions about things like the difference between a hypothesis and a theory. There were still misconceptions, but there was a greater interest and desire to teach evolution the more science classes you took, which told me the more I understand something, the less I view it as kind of a threat. There was also an interesting piece, 2 vignettes that were embedded with logical fallacies. While folks who did tend to agree with whatever perspective they were showing up with, if they were more religious, they tended to agree with the logical fallacy that sort of disproved evolution. Less, they would tend to agree with the logically flawed arguments that proved evolution. Interestingly, the Americans did a better job at spotting the logical fallacy. Coloradans in particular were a little bit more adept at finding the logical fallacy because it's a front and center debate. It's not necessarily a debate. In Germany,
It's nice to hear that the debate culture in America has some benefit for us. It's nice to hear that.
I think the U.S. participants definitely kind of saw that coming, but that didn't change the fact that they were more likely to agree regardless of the logical fallacy. So even if this is a logically flawed argument, I'll agree with it. I may think it's kind of wacky, but if it lines up with my beliefs, I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Were there any interesting things some of those teachers mentioned in America? Nice suggestions of ways to handle this?
And so I think this was a piece that would evolve as they, no, pun intended, I get, like this would be something that would grow, right, as they move into their full practice. Not trying to directly say anybody's wrong or right, but just say this is the scientific method, this is what's been borne out from the research, this is what we know, but it answers a different question. And I think that that's kind of a lesson learned from the German piece too, which was these are answering different questions, right? There's a philosophical, there's a theological set of questions that could be in this space, and overlapping them creates kind of an unnecessary conflict.
Why should people believe in your research?
I feel like everybody shows up and they want the best for their kids. And sometimes that gets lost in the political discussion. Sometimes that gets lost in the fervor of social media. I feel like we're all on the same team, but sometimes we get tricked into thinking that we're not. And so that's all to say, coming up with some less emotional examples to teach science, coming up with some ways to mitigate scientific misconceptions can help make these more palatable. I think that there's still a great way to teach scientific topics without making them overtly confrontational, but I do know that that's still in some ways a baseline of where we start in the US. And so I'd love to see us move in a place where that isn't so confrontational.
Why does research matter?
Does research matter? I think it helps us understand the natural world and the space we live in a little bit better. And so, if we're going to advance as a society, as a culture, I think we really need to lean on not knowing what we don't know and trying to build that body of knowledge, trying to explore new things. And we also still need to be respectful for and with people's theological, philosophical beliefs. If we don't have to have those two things in conflict, I think we stand a greater chance of seeing what human innovation can really be. So you can find me at rockymountain-research.org, and I'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Dr. Stewart.
Listen to the full interview for more research and more laughter exclusively on the Lab Rats Show podcast. Visit labratseducation.com to learn more.